All right, hello everybody. Today I'm talking about the upcoming Filament v4 release, and I'm trying to demonstrate a little bit of the new features. So let's get started. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Dennis. I'm still quite new here. I'm coming from Freiburg, the one on the other side of the border, so thanks for granting me Meetup Asylum. I'm working as a freelance dev for over 10 years now, and I'm part of the Filament core team. You can find me mostly on the Discord server, hanging out there, doing a little bit of support. You can find some of my Filament packages on my GitHub under that super easy to remember username. I've learned from that, so my Mastodon and my website, you can find me via my real name. All right, Filament. What is Filament? Anybody here that doesn't know what Filament is? Anyone that hasn't used it yet? All right, at least a little bit, some hands. Okay, so Filament started as a classic admin panel, which is free and open source. It's based on Livewire, which makes it super flexible and easy to customize, which makes it why it is so powerful. And you can see how you can configure a table on the right side here. And over the years, it evolved into something like a full-blown app builder, so you can do more than just simple admin panels. And you can use the simple single components outside of the panel and build a table or form integrate it into your front end. And so you can make your own apps with that. And we call it servant-driven UI because everything you can configure the whole UI inside with just PHP, and you don't need to write any blade files if you don't want to. All right, a quick overview over the new features that we have. I think they can be put into three groups. That's performance, dev experience, and new components. And because it's the most important one, I start with performance. So since Filament is based on Livewire, it's always a little trade-off between performance and dev experience, which we're probably happy to take. And honestly, the performance probably wasn't that bad, but it still was a little bit worse than if you used a standalone Livewire app, because we just have a lot more stuff around it, and also compared to front-end frameworks, it was worse in that regard. So what we did. We thought our biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues was rendering time, because the HTML was getting big quite fast. So one thing we identified is, of course, Tailwind, which makes up a lot of the markup, and which is sent to the browser every time we render something. So first thing we did was replace all Tailwind classes and introduce our own Filament classes. So we still are using Tailwind in v4, but we moved them into an old style sheet, so the HTML markup was cleaned up. And that gave us some improvements, but not as much as we liked. So another thing we found out is that plate components can impact the performance quite significantly, at least if you use them that heavily as we use them in Filament. So because, especially for tables, in a table, almost everything was a single blade component. So we had rows, and all the cells, they were all their own blade components, which sometimes ended up like 4,000 blade components just for a simple table. So we went back to the roots, and for important components, we now use PHP as it was intended as a templating language, and we removed blade components in that part completely. completely. And so this gave us, yes, some significant improvements. Of course, the larger the table gets, the better the improvements, because you don't have all the boilerplate around it. And I did some benchmarks. It was just some simple tests on my MacBook with the order resource from the Filament demo. And you can see for a table with up to 1,000 records, yes, some people apparently render 1,000 records on one page. We have improvements up to 30% in size, and speed improvements up to 60%. If you're on a normal app, it's more like 40, but that's still a lot of improvement from the version before. So this is super helpful for the first rendering, but that wasn't all we wanted to improve. So one limitation of Livewire is that if you want to change something, like one field that affects like two other fields that you want to re-render, you always have to re-render the whole component. And in Filament, every table, or like every page which contains the table or the form, is one big Livewire component. So that means if you have a large table or a large form, the whole thing needs to be re-rendered for just one or two fields maybe. And yeah, that's not really nice. And maybe we could have, like, you could improve this by splitting it into multiple components, but that would make everything way more complex. So what we did instead is we introduced a concept called partials, which is built on top of the Livewire foundation. So it's just a new Livewire feature, but built into Filament. And so now when you have that one component that affects two others, just those two components are re-rendered, and just the HTML of these two components is sent back to the browser, and just these two components have to be morphed into the DOM. So it saves us time in three stages of the whole process: rendering, transfer over the wire, and morphing. And we use these partials already on inside a table for the filter form and the actions. So for example, maybe if you used a Filament with a large table before, you notice that if you want to execute or just open an action that opens maybe just a simple text modal, it takes some time. It takes way more time than you would expect it to, and that's because you have to re-render the whole table. So if you have a table with 100 records, it fetches all 100 records again, renders the whole table, and then renders the open modal just for displaying this modal. So with the new version, it just renders the modal, sends it back as a partial. So this works way faster now. And we also added this to the forms. So that's a feature that you can make use of to improve your own apps. For example, if you want to update just one form component with some new content, you can now use the partially render after state updated method. That's quite a mouthful. For example, for rendering a password score below your password field. So as you can see, when I type here, just the component at the bottom is re-rendered, and the first one stays the same. So yeah, not the whole thing has to re-render. Maybe you don't want just to re-render one component, the one you're editing, but maybe you want to re-render other components partially. So for that, we have now partially rendered components after state updated. And you just need to pass it the keys of the components you want to re-render. And yeah, then it re-renders those components. For example, in this example, I have, let's go here. I have a select input at the top. And when I change something here, it just renders that log output at the bottom. So these are, oops. These are two methods to make use of the partial rendering in your components, and that's especially useful if you have something that needs to be rendered at the server side, or if you don't want to change much of your code. But we also give you new JavaScript methods, so you can do things in the browser directly. So we might be using Livewire because we don't have to write JavaScript anymore, but sometimes a simple one-liner probably is okay to write, I think. So, for example, now we have the hidden JS, invisible JS methods to show or hide something directly via JavaScript. So you don't have to do the server loop anymore. And this allows you to pass a JavaScript expression, which is evaluated then. For example, here, what I do is I use the get method, which you might know from the Filament server side. That's injected into all of the Filament methods or into the callbacks. And you can also use that in the JavaScript expression. And here I get the state of the published field, and when I toggle the toggle, it changes in real time, and it doesn't have to hit the server side. This is, maybe it's not that useful for a single field, especially after we now have partial rendering. That's also fast, but if you have a large section of fields, that's even more powerful to just toggle that large section. And usually, or maybe you just have a simple expression like I have in this case, so that's really nice. Maybe you want to update the state of another component from the browser side. So now we have the update after state updated JS, which lets you run JavaScript code after the state of your current field updated. This, for example, is super useful for a slug field when you want to generate a slug for a post title or something. So this also works in real time. I use the set method, which sets the state of another field, and I use the state var that gives me the current state of that field. So you can use these two methods and that one var to interact with the fields. Of course, you can use any other JavaScript method that you have in a global context or anything, or just like I did, define a JavaScript method just above the code, and just this sets the state on the client side. And of course, if you submit that form, that state is included and will be saved on the server side. So another thing we now have is the JS content object, and that lets you output content based on a JavaScript expression anywhere you could use an HTML string in the past. So, for example, if you want to make a char counter that now also renders in real time, and you don't, especially for like simple features like that, you don't want to have the server loop. So that improves the process a lot, I think. And the JS content is just a wrapper around some Alpine some Alpine evaluation, so you can give it anything that works in JavaScript. Another thing that we improved is bulk actions. So maybe you've noticed before, if you have a large table, and I mean a large amount of data in the table, not the current shown page, maybe you have 10,000 of records or 100 or even more. When you have a bulk action and you hit that select all method, or the checkbox, what we did before is we used all the IDs of every row and sent that to server. So for 10,000 records, we already had 0.3 MB, so that's quite a lot of data and might be declined by a server at some point, and it quite often crashed the browser because it just couldn't handle that amount of data. So we really had to improve this one, and now what we do is we track whether you selected or whether you checked the select all or you didn't, and if you have select all toggled and then deselect records, we only remember the deselected records instead of sending all records. So this is way smaller payload and happens way faster, and hopefully won't crash your browser anymore. Probably biggest improvement. Another thing that you can do now with bulk actions, if you have a large amount of data, you can now chunk the selected records. So you get a lazy collection with the records, which means not all the records are loaded into memory. And probably if you have 10,000 of records or more that are selected for a bulk action, that will lead to a memory issue at some point. So now you can use the chunk selected records method for that. Or if you don't want hydrated models at all, you can now use the fetch selected records method to disable the fetching of those eloquent models. And what you get is a collection of model IDs now. So that's especially useful if you want to run a database query anyway and like use a where in and want just IDs anyway, or if you want to load your own fields and not all of the fields of or all of the properties of the model. So you can now use the no fetching or the fetch selected records method for that one. All right, let's get to dev experience. So first thing we did is we unified the action classes. So in the past, we had action classes for a separate action class for every namespace and every package we had. And that's because for us, it was easier to track where those actions are used. So if we had a table action, we knew, oh, this needs a reference to the table to work and everything. So it made our life easier, but as devs using Filament, it made your life way harder. So what we did is we unified everything into one action, so you only have one namespace to remember. You won't accidentally import the wrong namespace anymore, and another nice result of that is if you extracted code into a separate class, you don't have to duplicate that class for pages, for tables and everything, so you can really reuse that actions now. Another thing that we unified is schemas. So what does it mean? Filament started with tables and forms, and in version 3, we then introduced info lists, which is a way to view the data and not only edit it. But those were separate concepts. So now we had forms for editing and info lists for viewing data. But as we all know, at some point, we need to combine showing data and editing data at some level. So with V4, we have now combined them, and it's called a schema. So in a schema, you can combine info lists and components, like form components, however you want. We already had that action component in V3 and also the livewire component in V3, so that's nothing new. But yeah, now you can really mix and match everything you want for a form or for an info list. So for example, here I have just a select input, and I can directly affect the image below. And on the top, I have some actions which also like directly affect the form, the complete form at the bottom. Another new thing we call schemas is page schemas, which follows a similar concept of form and info-list schemas, just for the full page. So before, when you had like an edit or a create page and you wanted to modify it a little bit, maybe you wanted to put something in tabs, or you wanted to add some content above or below, but keep the rest of the Filament functionality, what you had to do is you had to publish the blade file and override it and add your own stuff. And with an update, all of that could break because maybe we added some new functionality that relies on something in that blade file that you don't have yet. So that means after every update, you have to go through all the blade files, check whether they still have the right code, and if not, update them, which is kind of annoying. So with Filament v4, you can now override the whole page content via the content method. And this also accepts the schema with some components, and a component in this case is everything that's renderable. So, for example, a simple string, maybe an HTML string, maybe a complete view, or you can include a livewire component. And of course, you can also have tables and forms in there. So, and that's how Filament v4 also works. So we have a schema, we have a form in there, and we have a section with the actions, and they all work together. And they are all defined in some methods. So you can reuse that methods to include the already built components for you, and just reuse them and add your code or your own stuff below or above that. So that makes it super flexible. You can customize the whole page easily now. One highly requested feature with v3 was static tables. So people always wanted to add some data from maybe a static file or from an external API, and they were always suggested to use the Sushi package by Caleb Porcio, which kind of worked. It's made for static data, but it has some limitations, and especially if you combine it with an external API, that wasn't always the best choice. So with Filament v4, we give you a records method, and you can use our closure to return the records that you want to use for that table. And you can use almost all the Filament features that you used to, and it renders, you can use the front end you're used to. And for example, here I have a list with all the we had, so I can search for location. I can sort everything, and all this data comes from a static JSON file, which I sort and filter with standard Laravel collection methods. And you can use sorting, the pagination, and search and filtering on that, and those params are injected into the callback, and you can use whatever you like to filter that data to your needs. Another highly requested feature was nested resources. So before we had standard resources, which were the collection of your for your model with the list, edit, and create pages, and we had a relation manager which shows related data to that model. But that only went one level deep. So if you were at that relation manager and you clicked like view on the view action for a file, you ended up at the root level of that model or that resource again. So With v4, you can just declare the related resource on the relation manager. On the resource, you need to declare the parent resource. Then you get a real hierarchy for your resources. For example, if you want to list all the meetups and start by location, then we end up in that view we would all know. And if you now want to go deeper, for example, you want to check out a specific meetup, this is also just a view page and a relation manager at the bottom. But now you get this nice breadcrumb at the top, which is not just meetups view, but you can go all the way back either to the location list page or maybe just to the last location you viewed. And it's not limited to one level anymore, and makes it easier to navigate your app. And last but not least, what do all devs love? Built-in security. Before you had to use the Breezy package, which integrated the Laravel Breeze functionality into Filament. With v4, we have that built in. So all you need to do is you need a profile page. You can use the built-in one, which has all the functionality integrated. And you need to decide which multi-factor authentication method you want to use. You can either use an authenticator app like Google Authenticator or Authy or similar, or you can send the users one-time passwords via email. And depending on your on the method you want to use, you need to add some database columns for storing and implement an interface for getting and storing that data. All right, we also have some completely new components. I'm just doing a quick walkthrough because you can read the details in the docs, how to use them and what they offer. So we have Fuse Group, which is basically just a visual thing, which means, for example, here for a phone number, I combined a select input with a text input. And they're still two separate things, but visually combined into one. We now have a slider, which has two modes. Either like I have here, you have a single input, or you can use it as a range slider, so you have a handle for the start and the end. And all the other things are also customizable, like the box. It looks really minimalistic. I added some color for the track. I added the tooltip over the handle and also the pips, and you can configure all of that. We now have a code editor, which supports the most important, like all the web dev languages, or the most important ones for us probably, and some more. For now, it comes with only one theme, so you need to come to the dark side if you want to use it. And we also have, of course, we now have a code entry for showing the code. And this one is based on Ryan Chandler's Vicky, which is a PHP port of the famous Shiki code highlighting library. That means we can render it in PHP directly. It's super fast, and it comes with a ton of beautiful themes that you can choose, and also with a lot of grammars for your languages. We now have a table repeater, and this is not really a new component, but improvement of the current repeater component. And it's inspired by Adam's table repeater. That was a separate package before, and all you need to do is add the table method, which declares the header columns, and that will turn your normal repeater into a table repeater with all the features that a normal repeater has. For example, you can reorder items, delete items, and add new items. Then we now have a modal table select, which has a similar use case like normal select, but that's useful if you have more data, because if you have the normal select, it just opens as a select and you can search a little bit, but that's it. The modal table select opens as a modal with a whole filament table inside. So you have all the functionality that you usually have in a table. For example, now you can filter and check who's attending this meetup from the association members. Or you can just use the search to select the other people. And the selection is then shown if you have the multiple mode, like I have here, as these badges below. And last but not least, we have also improved the rich text editor. Before, it was built on top of Tricks, which is a good editor, but very simple. Now we move to TipTap. And yeah, you get all the features that you would expect from a normal rich text editor, like headlines, bold and italic, etc. But on top of that, we included one thing that's called merge tags. So you can define merge tags for that editor, and then you can drag and drop them into your editor. And when you're rendering that content, you can replace them with any content you want. And another new thing is blocks. So you can define these rich text editor blocks via PHP, and they can also be dragged into the editor, and you can define which fields you want to use, and then you get this nice preview of the block. You can customize that preview yourself. You can use a different preview and a different presentation for when you want to render for the front end. And of course, you can add more blocks and add multiple blocks into the editor and drag and drop them around. So this is like a small version of maybe WordPress's Gutenberg. So that's really allows better long-form content editing in the future. What else? There are a lot of other improvements. It's too much to walk through all of them. I want to highlight the documentation. We really worked on that one. I hope it's easier to navigate now. We added a lot of more examples and also screenshots, so it's easier to imagine what the new features look like. So check those out. And yeah, the current status is it's still in beta. And it probably will be until we fixed all, or at least most of the issues or the new issues reported with V4. And we hope to have a stable version in the next 1 or 2 months. If you want to help with that, now's a good time to test the beta, report issues on GitHub. And if you want to help the project in general, spread the word, or if you have some bugs left, or your employer, you can sponsor Dan directly, and that sponsorships are passed to the whole team, so everybody profits from that one. All right, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Does anyone have any questions?
Great.
Nobody. Completely overwhelmed.
Oh no.
What's your strategy with Lifeline 4? Sorry. What's the strategy with Lifeline 4? It was just announced.
As it is still, I mean, it's announced today, so we don't really know yet what's announced. So I think we still need to wait to know what is changing and whether there will be any breaking changes. We have an eye on the new partial feature that Lifeline now implements, so that might get an issue. We will see, depending on the implementation. And yeah, we have to wait and we'll react.
Any other questions? Then I say thank you very much, and we do a 5, 10, 15-minute break, grab some drinks, grab some snacks, and we'll be back in 5, 10 minutes with the second talk. Thank you, Dennis.